70% of it. The teacher starts explaining the 70% the student already knows, and they switch off. And they miss the 30% that they always get wrong. Right? So by changing your pattern of doing, something's new, we'll do a short presentation. The next lesson, we'll do practice first. See how much the students have taken on board. Decide, actually as a teacher it's more stressful because you can't plan your lesson and micromanage it the same way because you don't know what the students are going to do. But for the students it's beneficial. Okay? There's an idea of rule deduction rather than presentation. Okay? So rule deduction actually works on a number of language skills together. So the easiest way to do it, okay, time-wise, stuff like time, okay, we have to do listening again. I'm going to dictate 3 sentences. Okay, I would like you, first of all, to listen and write down the sentence. Okay, it's 3 sentences, you're going to write them down. You can work together. Okay, it's very important for students. Individual dictation is really stressful because you think, God, I didn't get it all. Pair work dictation is much easier. Have you ever seen drunk people remembering telephone numbers? Well, this is my experience. I always remember being out with my friends and going, what's John's number? Just a minute. It's 090. You remember that bit? Right, okay, 090, 090. Right. You do the next bit. And then we piece it together. Because my brain can't do a whole phone number when I've had 10 pints of beer. But I can do the first bit. So student, the same thing. Dictation can be a group activity. Listen, write down, work with your partner to get the sentence correct. Okay, are you ready? Okay, first is this. Okay, Japanese people often eat natto. Okay, ready? Japanese children usually walk to school. Japanese children usually walk to school. Wait and see. Third one. Japanese prime ministers rarely stay in office long. Okay? So the first stage, we dictate the sentence. We're not talking about what the grammar is, we're just getting that idea down. We need to check, obviously, that the students have the correct sentence. Okay? Can you now please highlight or circle the adverb in each sentence? Okay? Based on that, can you now think together what would be a good rule for where do you put adverbs? Okay? So the students get an image. Rather than me starting with, this is an adverb. Adverbs usually precede the verb. I don't do that. I say, right, we start with a dictation. We're listening and understanding. All right? Okay? We look at the placement of the adverb, highlight it. Okay? All right? What I do now is together, for each sentence, decide, do you think the sentence is true? Okay, so I get 10 seconds for each sentence. Is this a correct sentence describing Japanese society? Okay, so you get 30 seconds with your partner. For each sentence, decide, do you believe, for example, Japanese people often eat natto? Okay? Yes or no? Do you agree with the first sentence? Yes or no?
Sorry, what was it? Yeah, actually, or even agency. Yeah. Older generation.
Okay, fun time over. Okay. So, okay, who believes the first sentence is true? Japanese people often eat natto. What is your opinion? Do Japanese people, as a general group, often eat natto? Okay. Like, what was the second sentence? Ah, Japanese children usually walk to school. Is that true?
Not in Tokyo.
Ah, so we have a dissenting opinion. Or it depends on the school. It depends where they live. So you remember at this point, because we're now dealing with reality or meaning, the students they're not arguing with the grammar structure, but saying, well, no, actually where I live, a lot of students take the bus. Some of the students walk with their parents. Some of the students go by car. So now that we've changed, now that we're still in a meaning focus, there's lots of opportunities for new grammar to come out of this activity. Now, it's not the grammar that I chose as a teacher, but that's really not important. I'm still going to focus on the adverb idea. I'm still going to cover it, but I'm allowing the students the opportunity to expand their grammar according to what they want to say. Okay? Right? The next stage from this would be, I'd like to try and change each sentence for a different nationality that you have knowledge of. So again, one of the problems is, right, now change these for America. And a lot of these students go, I don't know. Never been. I have no idea. There's a common teacher error. They go, right, well, you must know about America, change it. And the student is going, oh, I've never. So they just make it up. Because it's the only option you've given them. So given the choice, do you know about the cultures of other countries? Which ones are you aware of? And if you're not, that could be a homework activity. Again, take that out of the classroom. It's not a grammar homework. Okay, each group go away and try and research this. For example, in Switzerland, what's a common breakfast food? The internet allows this to be done very simply. They don't have to research in English if they don't feel comfortable. They can research in Japanese, but the feedback will be in English, which means the grammar development happens in English. Most Swiss people never eat natto. So now they're starting to change the adverb. So slowly we're getting them to understand, why do we use adverbs, how do we use them, where do we put them in the sentence, but we haven't really done a traditional, this is an adverb, this goes in this part of the sentence, and a rule-driven approach. But the end result is the same. We have taught it. We haven't just left it to chance and said, maybe you'll understand adverbs at the end of this lesson, but if you don't, it doesn't matter. Which can happen. So well, you kind of got your idea across. And that idea, there's a lot of reasons that that's actually a negative thing. You kind of got your idea across. Ambiguity is okay. You don't need to restructure your grammar. But by nudging the students towards an improved performance helps. Does anyone know about community language learning? CLL is all these horrible things. So community language learning is a very simple idea. Very good classroom activity. So imagine that you have a group of students and you want to work on past tense. Okay? So I put the students in a group. The task is the students have to make a short story about last weekend. At the end of the activity, they have to record their story on tape or CD-ROM or whichever media you have in your classroom. This now means the students are terrified. All of their mistakes are recorded forever. But to agree, that's the point of community language learning. Work as a group to create the best possible language the group is able to do. And you allow them lots of time to do that. They go through and as a group they start to correct each other. One student going, oh, yesterday I go, oh no, God, it's went, isn't it? So you're getting them to pull all of the grammar into a situation, share it amongst the group. Then when they record it, then they listen back. They have a chance to re-record it. It's their choice. They can make the choice of, no, that is the best we can do as a group. Sorry. Or they might go, no, we think we can do better. Great, wipe it off, start again.
And then the cycle can continue as long as you want it to, or as long as the students want it to. If you really want to be evil, give the tape to another group and have them transcribe what they hear. Transcription, actually, the grammar dictation idea, highlights often what students are missing in their own grammar. You tend to listen to about 40 to 50% only. So you kind of pick up the key things. This is why morphology through listening is very difficult. A lot of students can't hear ed endings on verbs because they're not stressed. You play with these friends. They hear play and friends. They didn't really hear the middle. You understand the middle because you have grammar inside your brain. When the grammar is missing, you still pick up the meaning, but you're unable to put it back together. So transcribing can often show the students, right, listen to this, work as a group, take as many listenings as you want, listen 20 times if you want, that's fine, but transcribe what you think you hear. And at the end, show them the original transcript. Compare the two. And each time you're saying to students, notice what's different. And try and avoid the that's wrong approach, to notice what's different. Then think about, why is it different? Is it different because it's a mistake, or is it the same meaning in a different grammatical sentence? Okay? Any questions? See your faces going. Lunch. I'm hungry. You get okay, so that's going to do. So next, task-based language turning. Then turning. I can't use language. Task-based language teaching. Very popular at the moment. And the idea of task-based language teaching is that the lesson essentially focused was on a single task. Okay? It's quite controversial, as we found out last time. A lot of people say that if we just do a task and we judge the task by the outcome, what happens when students don't use the grammar we want them to use? This is a very common situation. That if we focus just on meaning and the kind of transfer of ideas, students can get by with pidgin English. Actually, my father-in-law can't speak English at all. Nothing. He was able to go to England and buy a packet of cigarettes. So he could go up, tobacco. And the guy brought down 5 packs, got money out of his pocket. The guy took the coins off them. So he actually completed a task with no language. Now, as I say, like, task-based language teaching can be very good and very effective. But we have to be aware of what do we want the students to produce. But also we shouldn't decide what they produce. Or else we may as well just do drills and model conversations. If as teachers we're going to decide the language and say, no, you must use present perfect continuous because that's today's lesson. But you're going to have a task cycle. So the idea is you give your students a task. For example, you're going to choose a birthday present for your friend. Okay? Now I haven't decided any of the language. As you walk around, you monitor and listen in to the language that's being used, and you note, for example, language that's missing. Things that you think, no, they really should be using that because it's more effective. Or sentences that are incorrect. At the end of the task, you get the meaning feedback first. We're going to buy a pet dog for John, or an iPod for Kenji, or whatever. Right? Then on the board, you make a note of preferably 2 sides. One side is maybe suggested language. These are phrases that are commonly used. Read through them and think, did I use any of these phrases? So again, it's a personal choice. You're noticing, did I use them? And often you'll see students going, nothing going to connect. And the students, in that quiet time, think about what's missing. The errors go on, for example, the right-hand side. And you say to the students, some of these sentences are wrong. Can you tell me the mistakes?
So instead of the teacher correcting everything, you're saying to the student first, do you notice a mistake? If they notice the mistake, they're at kind of level 1 in terms of their interlanguage. They know it's a mistake. Maybe they can fix it, maybe they can't. So maybe that's my next question. All right, you know that's wrong. Can you fix it? They try to fix it. If they're able to fix it, we know much more about the student's language development. They understand it's wrong. If they give them time, they can fix it. But when they produce quickly, they get it wrong. This means we don't need a presentation phase in our lesson. We don't need to teach that point. In fact, if anything, we'll annoy the student by teaching them again. Or we'll make them think that they didn't understand it because we presented it again. So, another there's the idea also of language planning time. It was read in by a guy called Mark Helgeson, who's at Miyagi University-ish. And the same thing in English firsthand, which there might be copies of out there. The textbook he wrote has lots of these activities where it says, for example, here are 5 topics. Choose the one you want to talk about. Think about the language you need. If anything's missing, go to your dictionary. Plan what you're going to say. And at the end of those stages, now do the activity. And the research that's been done suggests that students are much more accurate when they have planning time. One of the problems in classroom situations, the classroom is not a natural environment. There's no context. The students come in, they don't know what they're supposed to do. The teacher walks in and goes, right, okay, so what to do is together talk about last weekend. And the students will go straight into production with no thinking time. But in your natural language use, you have planning time because you know what you want to say. The ideas have already been kind of formed in your head. I meet my friend, I want to tell them about Saturday night. So it's kind of unconsciously, my brain's already accessing all of the language, the grammar, the vocabulary. And when I meet my friend, I talk about it. If you ever read like native speaker conversations transcribed, they are full of mistakes. They're ungrammatical. They get it, they make mistakes of vocabulary use. They say something, go back and fix it. Because spoken language is not neat, it's messy. You're producing quickly, you're going to make mistakes. So giving the students the language planning time allows them to access their kind of grammar bank. This means the mistakes you notice will be the ones that they're going to make every time. The mistakes they make because you're putting pressure on them, they're maybe only making because of the pressure. So then these are very small kind of tweaks to your lesson approach. You're going to do this, take 5 minutes to plan it. If you have a question, ask me. You take a look at your dictionary, open your textbook, whatever you need, please do it. Okay? But finally, I have to say something very unpleasant about junior high school textbooks. They're rubbish. Within second language acquisition theory, there's an idea which is called input flood. It's a lovely image. That when we're talking about understanding patterns, we need data. Children get the data all the time. They're surrounded by it. Parents scaffold everything they say. They push their kids naturally towards correct language. They see it all the time around. And the idea of input flood is that when you start to learn a new piece of language, in this case grammar, you have to see lots and lots of data. Lots of examples of the same form over and over and over again. Okay? So, I photocopied a lovely textbook. Okay? Okay. The object of this lesson, according to the teacher's manual, is passive voice. Okay? So you should never sit in the middle. Okay? Can you quickly read through that and count how many examples of passive voice are in this unit? Okay? Okay, can you look at this one? Can you please count how many times you see passive voice in this textbook? you really don't want to look at it, if you really want, I can pass copies back. You probably don't want to look at it. Right? So you notice that this group finished very quickly. They are very intelligent, but that's not why they finished quickly. They finished quickly because there's only one example of passive voice in the whole textbook. So you think, how are the students supposed to understand how passive voice is made, or when to use it? When and this is actually 2 pages of the book. This is the entire unit, which is ostensibly teaching passive voice to 3rd grade junior high school students, and they get one example, and not even a very good example. It's actually pretty unclear. Right? Essentially, if I was a teacher, if I was a teacher doing this, recovery, and as a quite good teacher training is to give the teachers that and say, right, what's this teaching? Right? With no teacher's book, you look at it and go, right, what is the focus? I mean, well, the focus of this is imperatives. It's instructions. It's describing how to make these magic wings. Yet, the focus for the teacher's book is how to teach passive voice. And because they got the question, they are pasted at one point. That's it. In all of that, again, they are pasted at one. And from this, theoretically, your 3rd grade junior high school students now understand passive voice. From a single example, there are no negatives. There's only a single verb in there. Okay? And it's a regular verb, so it's pretty easy. There's no irregulars in there. How many did you get from your example?
12.
So this one has 12 in roughly the same amount of text. So that an input flood approach is, when you're introducing it, this is what they need. They need lots and lots of exposure, but not just lists. Lists are useless. Lists have no connection. So what happens, junior high school students do this, there's no input, and then they do grammar drill book, where they do unconnected sentences. So at the end of it, there's still no kind of psychological image of what is passive. When do I use it? How do I use it? I can use it in all of these individual sentences, but that's all I can do. Okay, this is not to say that this is the end stage. Again, this is another one. The input flood happens at the beginning. What you'll probably find is then your students start using passive about everything. How are you today? I was awoken by my alarm clock. I was taken downstairs by my feet. Where I was nourished by breakfast. But this is actually, this is actually very good though. If someone who does that is going, right, this is new, I've seen lots of examples, and I've got to try and use it or I won't be able to do it. So I'm actually going to try and use it. So input becomes output. Eventually though, then you start to notice that this output's silly. And you start to refine your output. This is when the text has to start changing from an input flood of lots of passive to then more natural examples of passive. So you start to see that it's not used all the time. Actually, again, newspaper articles are quite a good source of passive voice. It's not used commonly in that much in speech. Unfortunately, lexical passive is very common. I got my hair cut. I got my suit dry cleaned. Unfortunately, junior high school students don't learn that. They learn that in apparently 2nd grade of high school, having learned the really complex grammar passive first and got not understood it. So you can't have a look at what my students need. At the beginning, try and give them lots of examples, then wean them into specific examples. When should I use it? Look in naturally occurring text, highlight them. Again, we're building patterns of grammar rather than saying that there are rules of when and where you should use it. Okay? So I think now I've talked far too long, which is one of my terrible hobbies. Are there any questions before lunch? Not that I'm hinting in any way that you might be hungry. Good. So, Alex, the notes from the presentation and a very good reading list which if you read through, you'll go, oh, he stole all those ideas from somebody else. Will be posted on my website, which is gw-tsol.com. I'll write it up. Fairly easy to remember, he said. There's no WW nonsense. This is like home pages for lazy people. There is the http ... which was an accident. So when I get a little bit more time, and my kids let me, so I will put the kind of an outline of the notes. There's no handout today to save money, and also the reading list, and also in the meantime, actually, two things I would recommend looking at. If you actually, I think it's on YouTube. Oh, if you go to Scott Thornbury's homepage, there are links to two video presentations which were done on the MA program in New York, which are excellent. And also, Scott Thornbury's blog, which is an A to Z of methodology, is very interesting in that, first of all, the content is very interesting, and it's also very democratic. If you post messages to the blog, they appear there instantly, and there's a really lively discussion that goes on from that. So you're not feeling like I'm down here, you're straight in chatting with all these luminaries, Stephen Krashen selling you rubbish, whatever. So again, it's a really good resource to look at. No. Go, what do you like? I think actually, I'm pretty sure that it's www.thornburyscott.com is that. And then from that, if you go to works, so if you do anything like Uncovering Grammar, if you ever get a hold of it, it's a brilliant book. But there's lots of reading out there. Okay? Right, and time for lunch. Thank you very much.
I no go lunch.
Lunch is a no-go area.
Can you get you guys to sign up the more we have on the list? Where's the list? It's in the other room, I'll show you.
Oh, really? Yeah, I'm done for the day. Oh, it was on elementary school textbook. Yeah. Hey, man. Good. That was good. Informative. I learned a couple of things.
Oh, okay. What did you think of that? Say that one more time.
Informative.
Very good.
Thank
You said it was good too. That was good. Yeah. This is your boss, remember?
Yeah, yeah, of course. I have to say that. I was paid.